Many are questioning how the Biden administration handled the troops' withdrawal from Afghanistan as calls to hold him accountable grow stronger across the country. Joining us for more on this is former Chief of Staff of the National Security Council and CIA analyst Fred Fleitz. Fred, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Mercy, good to be here.
You wrote an op-ed for Newsmax and you called for Biden and Harris to be impeached for endangering U.S. national security. Why should they be impeached?
Look, I know this is a very serious thing to call for, and I didn't make it lightly. I supported pulling out of Afghanistan, but in an orderly fashion, in cooperation with our allies, in cooperation with the Afghan government and military. Mercy, this decision was senseless. It made no sense at all. Former ambassador to Afghanistan, Ryan Crocker, he's a career Foreign Service officer. You probably know him. He said about this crisis recently, I'm left with some grave questions in my mind about his ability to lead our nation as commander-in-chief. We're looking at a situation where a man who had bad foreign policy instincts when he was younger, now, when he apparently is losing control of his mental faculties, is making decisions that make no sense whatsoever. How could we leave Afghanistan by abandoning bases in the middle of the night, by pulling the rug out from under the Afghan military, and then Biden gives a speech taking an hour away from his vacation to blame the military for the rapid fall of Kabul? Even Biden's Democratic allies don't agree with that. So I think we have to consider Biden is no longer qualified to be commander-in-chief, and Harris should not succeed him because she has been involved in this disastrous southern border. I think if the Republicans take control of Congress next year, they have to move to impeach both of them in January 2023.
Well, Fred, you bring up Vice President Kamala Harris. It's actually been interesting. She's been so quiet through all of this. I think she's probably saying to herself, let the president deal with this fiasco. But she is going to be traveling to Vietnam later this week, which seems to me that it's poor timing. As we've seen that many individuals have actually compared what's happened in Kabul to what happened in Saigon in the 1970s with the defeat of the American military. Don't you think this is a problematic visual for the administration?
I think it makes no sense at all. She has shown no capability on foreign policy at all. But I think for the American people, the failure to guard the southern border and letting in thousands of refugees through the southern border who are COVID positive, this is a much bigger security issue for our country. She is in the middle of this, and she should be held responsible for that.
So we're seeing now hundreds, if not thousands, of these Taliban prisoners being released. One of them, pretty famous guy, Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar, co-founder of the Taliban. He's been involved in this movement for quite some time, just freed from prison. He's going to be the public face of the Taliban. He's telling the Taliban troops, don't be arrogant, quote unquote, when you're on the streets in Afghanistan. What does this mean for the people of Afghanistan?
He's savvy. He's reckless. He's been negotiating with the United States since 2018 when we asked for him to come out of prison for the negotiations in Doha. We don't know that he will lead the Taliban. It looks like he will lead the Taliban. I think he is trying to find a way to set up a government and get as much assistance as he can from the outside world. But make no mistake, this is a bloodthirsty killer. He's completely untrustworthy, and Sharia law is still coming to Afghanistan.
Yeah, I keep finding it interesting that the Taliban are saying that they're going to form a more, quote unquote, inclusive government. We'll see about that. But we've got the issues of China and Russia, our enemies, that are looking at the collapse of Afghanistan, and they are seeing this as an opportunity to basically have more influence in this area. How do you think the Biden administration is going to handle this? And will this be a growing concern for our military and our country as we see growing terrorist threats possibly occurring?
The Biden administration doesn't have a clue. We've known that over the last week. What I find interesting is the question of whether the Taliban will how closely they will actually ally themselves with the Russians. They hate the Russians for obvious reasons because of the invasion in the 80s. And there are problems with the Taliban's relationship with the Chinese because of China's persecution of the Uyghur Muslims who are ethnically related to some Afghans. I understand there's going to be an understanding between the Taliban and China that they will not engage in interfering in the affairs of the other country. Let's see how long that lasts. I don't think the Taliban is going to want to be too close to the Chinese while they're persecuting Muslims.
Well, we appreciate your insight. Thank you for joining us today, Fred Fleitz.
Good to be here.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, where real news for real people.